Okay, I'm going to get started. Good evening. Welcome, everyone. This is the launch of the Center for Intelligence and Security Studies at the University of Akron. My name is Carl Kaldenthaler. I'm the director of this new center. And I want to tell you before we begin tonight that this event is being recorded. And I also want to ask you if you could turn your cameras off, not because I don't want to see you, but because this will help with the bandwidth issue. And also if you could keep your microphones muted while the speakers are speaking. So speakers, you keep your cameras on and your microphones on, but everybody else, if you could turn them off, that'd be great. So we have the strongest possible connection. So I want to talk a little bit about what this center is intended to do. And the center was conceived as an idea to bring the resources we have at the University of Akron to bear to prepare the next generation of professionals working in the intelligence and security communities. And by security, I mean national security, cybersecurity, and community security. And so what we intend the center to do, the kind of functions we want the center to perform, very importantly, to mentor students. So to mentor students both in their studies so that they do what they should be doing in preparing themselves for their careers, and also mentoring students as they're looking for jobs, even if they're out of the University of Akron, giving them advice on how to maximize their career paths. And to aid in this, we've assembled a really fantastic board of advisors. We have 20 plus people who've been really generous to become part of the board of advisors and who are willing to help with mentoring our students and making this center a possibility. So when you look at the board of advisors, there's an immense amount of experience and insight there to bring to bear to help our students out. We also have a really great set of faculty fellows, and we've got faculty fellows who span a breadth of disciplines, who all have expertise to bring that is useful for training our students in intelligence and security careers. And so I really want to thank both our board of advisors and our faculty fellows for willing to be part of the center and making this possible. So besides mentoring our students, one of the very important things that the center is intended to do is give students opportunities for experiential learning. So this means things like internships, this means things like student research fellowships in the center. The center is also to be a forum for a speaker series, so to have experts speak on the pressing issues in intelligence and security that are on people's minds at the moment. The center will also be a forum for facilitating faculty and student research. So we'll have student fellows that will be part of the center that will be able to do research on their own, but also research with faculty. And importantly, the center is intended to develop new ways to train today's intelligence and security professionals, but also the next generation, future security and intelligence professionals. So now I want to turn to our next part of the event, and that is going to be the speaker part of the event. And we have three very esteemed speakers this evening. We have Provost John Winsek from the University of Akron. We also have Mr. Michael Morell. Unfortunately, Michael Morell can't be here this evening, but he provided recorded comments that we'll play in a few minutes. But we're also very, very happy and thankful to have Mr. Wayne Stone with us this evening. Mr. Stone is a very esteemed professional in the intelligence community in the United States and has very generously offered his time to speak to us tonight, but also is a great asset on the Board of Advisors for the center. One thing I want to make clear is that feel free to ask questions either of Mr. Stone or myself about the center in the chat here on Teams. So as you have these questions come to you, you can put them in the chat. And when we get to the question and answer session, after our speakers have spoken, then we'll address the questions. Okay, so let me introduce our first speaker, Provost Winsek. Dr. John Winsek is an accomplished chemical and biochemical engineer. He's an experienced administrator, and he is the Executive Vice President and Provost at the University of Akron. And now I'd like to turn the floor over to Provost Winsek.
Thank you for the introduction, Carl. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, good. Well, it's really great to be with you virtually. And I think we're coming to the end of our virtual days, and I'm really looking forward to it. And hopefully we'll be able to get together in quote unquote reality sometime in the near future. I really want to get to know you all better on a more personal basis. As Carl indicated, my name's John Winsek. I'm serving as the Executive Vice President and Provost, and a lot of folks don't know what a provost does, so I'll just take a moment to indicate in simpler terms and layman terms what that is. It's really coordinating our academic enterprise. Sort of the core of the mission of a university is really about knowledge. It's about learning new things. It's sharing the knowledge we have and using that knowledge in service to society and our community. As provost, I am the president's sort of go-to person to help the faculty accomplish this mission. So my goal is really to support our faculty in doing the great things they do, much like the center that we're talking about tonight. I recently joined the university, although I don't know, pretty soon I won't be able to say recently. It's almost been a year now. And I'm really glad to be back in Akron. I grew up in the area, grew up in the Portage Lakes area, and it's been about 30 years away from my hometown, visiting and working at a variety of universities throughout the country. I've been in the Midwest and in the South and then the Northwest. So I've had quite a range of experience. And I think that experience is really going to serve me and the university well as we move forward. I also want to express some thanks. First of all, I want to say thank you to Carl and his faculty colleagues and all the faculty that are here with us this evening, as they have really worked diligently to birth this center, the Center for Intelligence and Security Studies, amid some very challenging and turbulent times, both in the country, but also obviously here at the University of Akron. I want to say thank you. The patience and persistence that you have displayed has really brought us to this wonderful moment. I think you've done a wonderful job, and I'm looking forward to continuing to support the center and push it forward. I also want to say thank you to all the intelligence and security professionals who have agreed to serve on this initial advisory board for the Center for Intelligence and Security Studies. I'm looking forward to eventually meeting you in person and working with you to assure that we offer excellence in all areas of intelligence and security studies. Your volunteer efforts here to help us launch and actually push this program forward is really going to be vital for our students and our faculty success. And the center is really grateful to you for serving in this capacity. Finally, I do want to say thank you to Wayne Stone, our keynote speaker tonight, for normally I'd say for making the journey to Akron, but this is a virtual journey to Akron. And we really are looking forward to your comments, and I'm eager to hear how you think the center can best serve our society and actually help our students be prepared for potential careers in the areas of security and intelligence. The University of Akron is really re-engaging with its historical roots. President Miller joined about a year and a half ago. He's made it clear that we have a very strongly connected institution to the city of Akron and the region. We have a long history in the liberal arts, but also in the professional practices that really service Akron and the region. We have uncommon strengths in programs that really span the academy. programs from political science to polymer science, programs from foreign languages of all sorts to mechanical engineering, from communication to construction technology. So you would wonder what connects all those things together. Well, obviously there's a need here in Akron, but a connection also is that they all will serve the Center for Intelligence and Security Studies in very important ways. The center will be an important integrator for these diverse areas of studies and for potential vocations for our students. Each of those areas has a strong connection to a variety of intelligence and security concerns that we all face. Yet there's no common place to bring these diverse fields together in one spot until now with the formation of this new center. A major component of the center's work will be experiential learning. And I can share my story. I don't want to bore you too much, but I'm an Ohio native, and when I was looking at schools, I was attracted to the University of Cincinnati, and they have a very strong co-op program, as does the University of Akron. So we have a long tradition here at the University of Akron in providing our students this kind of real-world experience. That's important to our students because it helps them figure out whether that's the right career for them. And oftentimes students will tweak their career choices, maybe move from one version of engineering to another, or from one form of computer science to another. Whatever the area is, these experiences not only teach the students beyond the classroom, they help them figure out how they want to spend the rest of their life. We've expanded this here at the University of Akron. We now have an Excel Center, which is a faculty-driven center focused on experiential learning opportunities for our students. We have the Career Center, and obviously engineering has had a long history with co-op and intern programs. So the center is a natural fit, and it's actually going to be able to leverage these other resources on campus. Another example of bringing our faculty and our staff and our resources to bear on an important problem. So in closing, I look forward to great things from the center in service to the intelligence and security sectors of our economy, but more importantly, in service to our students who are seeking to find their purpose in life and for ways to serve humanity. So once again, thank you, Carl, and all the faculty and all of you professionals that are come together to serve on this advisory board.
Thank you very much, Provost Winsek. Now I'd like to introduce our second speaker, virtually and by video. And before I start his recorded comments, I'd like to say a little bit about him. Michael Morrell had a 33-year career at the CIA. His positions included acting director and deputy director of the Central Intelligence Agency. Presently, Michael is senior counselor and global chairman of the geopolitical risk practice of Beacon Global Strategies in Washington, D.C. Very importantly, Michael Morrell is a University of Akron alumnus and is the honorary chair of the Center's Board of Advisors. Now let us hear Michael Morrell's comments on the Center.
Good evening. I am honored to join, albeit only virtually, this launch event for the University of Akron's new Center for Intelligence and Security Studies. I believe deeply that intelligence has never been more important than it is today to our nation's security. And I believe deeply that our intelligence capabilities as a nation have never been challenged as much as they are being challenged today by technological advances and by the growing capabilities of our adversaries. I believe this center will help with the understanding of intelligence, and it will help educate our country's future intelligence officers. So my congratulations to all those involved in making this a reality. I am so proud that my university decided to take this on. Again, congratulations to all, and please enjoy the event.
It is my great pleasure now to introduce Wayne Stone, our keynote speaker for this evening. Wayne Stone is the Senior Reconati Kaplan Resident Fellow at the Belfer Center at Harvard University. Wayne has served in multiple senior management positions within the United States intelligence community, most recently as Senior Executive Management Officer in the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. Prior to this role, he served as the Acting Inspector General of the intelligence community. He is a very esteemed member of the Center Board of Advisors, and we are so pleased to have him. I'll now turn the floor over to Mr. Stone for his remarks.
Oh, thank you very much. It's very kind of you, Carl. I appreciate it. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Well, it's just an honor to be part of the center. It's just absolutely, as we embark on the stand-up of the center, amazing effort to get it going, and to be able to stand it up and to look at the actual curriculum that exists. I see this center from two different views. One, as an educator here in Boston, I look at the center. We have something similar here at Harvard, but nothing is as deep as the center that sits there at UA. And I think that the students being exposed to so many different types of classes, the diversity of professors and classes, and how we'll prepare them coming into the IC or into security, be it national or otherwise, is truly amazing. It's benchmark. And I say that because I look at it from the other side of being an intelligence officer. And as an intelligence officer, I look at this program and I see it as one thing that we have been striving for is transparency. For people to really understand, if you think back 10 years ago, and that standing joke in the intelligence community, if I tell you I got to kill you. And people say that and we all smile and we laugh, but information isn't passed about what we do. And for the last 10 to 15 years, under Director Clapper's push, who initiated this when he was the director of the ODNI, was to have transparency across the intelligence community, for people to understand what the intel community does and what kind of force multiplier we are to the nation and how important it is for the protection of the nation against enemies, foreign and both domestic. And so I think that as you begin to look at what this program will do, from an intelligence standpoint, it will be a gateway, a potential gateway for us to harvest talent into the intelligence community and into the security arena. And if they chose to go into non-government, that's fine, but it's service to nation. And people who choose this path, it is a sense of service. It is a very different profession. Some of it very secretive and very silent, and some of it very open. But it is unique onto its own. I started off my career, as an engineer in the Army. And in the Army, they say you have to have a secondary function. And I said, okay. And they said, okay, report to this building. And I was like, okay, wait, do I get to choose? And like the Army, no. And they said, there's a Federal Express package at your house now. I should have known then that it was very different. And I got home that evening and it was a package report to a certain building. I got to that building and I noticed the armed guards outside, and then I realized I was now being pulled into the intel community. And that was our darker days. It was, we need you for something, but you didn't know what it was until you got there. And I've been with them since. But I will tell you today, we tell you what we're looking for, why we're looking for it, and if you have that skill to get there. And so that transparency is important. And I think this program, if you look at the type of classes that you have the opportunity to engage on, will set you up and enable you to be a quality intelligence officer. I truly believe that. And I think part of that first gateway of course being that gateway is the interview. Just go back to the basics of how to interview to get into the intel community. A lot of people think that it's this hard thing where we're going to push you out of a plane and you've got to assemble a weapon before you hit the ground. We're going to ask you to come into a room and do a differential equation problem on a board, and you've got 30 minutes and there's no calculator. Go. I mean, that's not what happens. It's basically you come into a room and it's a 30-minute interview. It's not a secret, and we have a series of questions that we'll ask you. And that's your initial interview. And the most standard questions that I've seen, and I've sat on a lot of panels when I was chief of staff, and I reviewed those questions because they have to be standardized, and they're not hard. And the first question would be, why do you have an interest in this agency? Not hard. Some people would give us answers. I saw it on USA Jobs. It looked interesting. I applied. That's an honest answer. Some people would say, I have a family member or a friend who's in the IC and I saw it. It looked very interesting. Someone will say, I was in the military, I worked with those skill sets, and I applied. And some would say I was in college, I took a series of classes. It really gave me a good foundation for understanding of the IC. And while they're in college, I had an opportunity to get an internship, and I was at DIA, CIA, NSA, one of the A's, and did 6 months internship. And so I understand what your agency does. I understand intelligence strategy. I understand your 5-year plan and where you're going. And as a result of that, I have a high interest in working for your agency. Which one of those students do you think you will be when you go through the center? You'll be number 3, right? And so none of those answers are wrong, but I think number 3 is potentially more right. Right? And so this program prepares you from the time you hit the door of the IC as you progress through your career in the IC. And I will tell you, when you come to the IC, many people believe, well, I want to be an analyst. When I came in, I started in Defense Human Service. So that was human service. Since then, I've done many different things, from human capital to going back to that type of work, to what I do now, being at Harvard. The intel community, when you get in, it's just a cornucopia of different career tracks, and you just name it. Regardless of your degree, there's an opportunity here for you. And new things will open up for you. But you will have the foundation by coming to the center. You'll have mentors that will guide you through, and practitioners from across the IC who, hopefully, if you're in DC or they're in Ohio, will sit down and share their career with you. We love being able, because over years we haven't been able to talk about what we do. Because of the transparent push, we're able to do that to a degree, to tell you what we've done and where we've gone and where we want to do, and how you may have an interest in those very same things. And so I think that getting past the interview skill piece, getting into the IC with this foundational classes that you will have the opportunity to take will be a benchmark. I'll tell a very quick story. In my time in UIT, had an assignment in Africa, and I will tell you that you think the classes, they're classes, and you learn them and you put them in the bucket and you kind of move on. But for me, I got deployed with a force, a small team, into Africa on an intel mission, and the requirement was to meet with a certain group of folks who were, for better use, they didn't even know what an American was, right? So I was pretty deep into this part of the world. And so in engaging with them, we needed some information and we wanted to have a liaison with them. But there was a problem. 2 other tribes and communities that were on their right or left knew what Americans were, knew what French were, didn't want to deal with them and didn't want us in that part of the country or in their area. And then there was one other issue in the report, right? Being an analyst is important, reading their products. There was one line that talked about the potential for cannibalism that had gone on with one entity that was close to this group that we were dealing with. And I'll say this, as the story goes, with cannibalism, there's a disease that runs with it called Roku. And if someone gets Roku, you can pretty spot it very quickly. But the people we were dealing with, not the case, as it said in the report. So we depart in this team. We get there, the boat that was supposed to be the boat was not. It was a canoe with a lawnmower motor that went about 6 miles an hour. Right? That was a 45-minute travel upstream. We get there, and then it's about a 3-mile trek on a beaten path into their area. We get there, and we begin engagement. The elder's son took offense to my posture. Right? He had never seen 1 Americans and 2 an African American, and I looked very different than him. I was way taller than him, big, and of course you have on all your equipment underneath your jacket, body armor, so I really looked huge to this individual, which of course threatened him, and we began to have issues. So you have to think. I realized this is going bad, and one of the technicians from the Special Forces Group turned to me and said, "Sir, this is going south." And so I said, "Okay, let's assess the scenario. We have people on the right or left who are not in our favor. We have potential cannibalism at one point, and we have an individual in front of us who has become highly irate. And he elects to ask for my jacket, right, to show the people that he's in control. He wants the jacket off my back." And so I began first to think, I'm from New York, and so of course the New Yorker comes out, and I, begin to give the hard stare, and then I realized this is not going to work. And I thought about believe it or not, at that time, the classes that I took back in school. All right, and some of the classes that I will tell you, the drama classes and the sociology classes, right, and communication classes, those things came to bear very quickly in that moment. And so because I was way bigger than the individual, I quickly took a seat, which put him at a higher posture. I changed my tone, right? And then I found something else that he thought was of value to me and told him he could not have that. He could have the jacket, but he can't have that thing. And he realized that thing was something more value. He went after that, and he wanted that. Of course, it didn't mean that much to us, and we gave it to him because he was special, and he was happy. And we then had our communications, and we moved on. The downside was I saw an individual who he had with him who was experiencing Roku. So again, realizing they said it was the other tribe that was having issues with cannibalism. It was not, it was this group. So very nervous, very intense, but those drama classes and those sociology classes and those psychology classes and those communication classes in that moment paid huge dividends, and things went well for them and it went well for us. We returned through that 3-mile path onto that boat, and all went well. And I say that because when I was sitting in college, as many of you sit there now thinking, you know, which classes to take and how will they apply, there was no point that I ever think while sitting where you were in Ohio, as I was sitting at St. John's University in New York, that I would 10 years later be sitting in the jungle, heavily armed, right? Having one individual thinking he wants to kill me because I'm bigger than him, and the other one looking at me because he literally wants to eat me, right? Prepared to be in a shootout in a very distant land, right? Never thought of that. But the things that I experienced in life, my academic foundation and the classes that I took prepared me for that moment, and all worked well. So I will tell you, as you come through this center, hopefully none of you will ever have to deal with that. But I just think as you come to the center and you embrace this program, it will prepare you to be an IC. I mean, you look at those classes and they are amazing. The professors that you engage with, whether they are, you know, in the communication field, in the cyber field, go see the other professors as well that are teaching English and drama, because you're going to need to be able to communicate. You need to be able to write extremely well because people need your product. But have a diverse portfolio when you get here, because this program that you're in will get you there. I want the recruiters to be able to come there and harvest your talent and give you the ability to serve. The classes you take, the people that you have as mentors, the alumni, the retirees, and the former intelligence officers that are about this community want people who have a sense of service. And it is clear by engaging in this that you have that. It is a profession, as I said earlier, unto its own. It is a silent service, but it is something that you will do that is totally amazing. From the day I walked through those doors, I've never turned back and regretted one thing. And I look forward to walking the halls with many of you. And so, a pre-welcome to the intelligence community. I truly wish you the best. Welcome to the center, and be your best person. That's all I could say. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. Great comments. Really appreciate it. Never would have expected that somebody faces an experience where they have to worry about cannibalism in the intelligence community, but I guess you got to be prepared for everything, right?
Unfortunately.
All right. So excellent. So let's open the floor for some questions now. Remember, you can use the chat function to ask questions of either Mr. Stone or myself if you have questions about the center. So I'm going to read out a couple questions for you. We've got a question from one of our grad students, Victoria Fusco. What are some important skills, qualities that you think somebody going into the intelligence community should have?
Victoria, I think one, the ability to communicate. You have to be a strong writer so that people have confidence and can understand what you're saying. Because remember, if you create an intelligence report in any format and it's poorly written, right? How much confidence will I have in the actual product itself? If I can't read what you're saying, it doesn't flow, it doesn't make sense. And so you need to be able to do that. The second piece is, if we call on you to say, okay, we read your report, it's solid, need you to be there tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock, can you brief it? You need to be able to stand up in a room of people and articulate your product so that they understand it, be succinct and factual and to the point and relevant. And so communication skills, both orally and written, are key in being an intelligence officer.
Okay. So we've got a question from another graduate student here, Cindy Mortius. She asks, apart from working with this new center, what else can we do to set ourselves apart from other applicants?
I think, Cindy, one of the things you can do, I think, language is always very helpful to have in your bag. If you have a language, not a requirement. I still struggle with English. It's the only language I have. So that's fine. But if you have the opportunity to gain another language, that's always a plus. Any language is really well. But I think what sets you apart, the program itself will set you apart. People don't have this level of exposure. I mean, I've met some of you, this year, and to sit down and ask you questions. I mean, as I said, I sit on hiring panels with GS 13s, 14s, and some SESs. And I've put a couple of questions to some of your peers that I know some of the senior executives that I work with can't answer because of the level of exposure and what you've learned in your program. Okay, because you're learning about FBI, CIA, and who's on your right and left. Some of the senior officers that have been around in the intelligence community for 10, 15 years, some of them have been only in their agency and haven't gone out on a joint duty program or gotten any experience. And so they can't tell you what the FBI is doing. And a chain is only as strong as its right and its left links. And so you going through this program will understand what the FBI does, what the DHS does, and you have an understanding. And then if you decide to go to one of them, you know what's on the right or left. Sometimes those who are already in the community don't have that, or other people applying won't have that experience. So if someone was to ask a question during an interview, how do you think your role here would apply as in impacting our sister agencies? Or if you weren't coming to our agency, what agency would you have as a secondary? The person wouldn't, some people wouldn't know. You would. And so I think in engaging these series of classes, you will have a step up on those that you are competing against.
Thank you. Thank you. So I've got a question from Lisa Craig, who works at the University of Akron. And the question is, what are some research projects on your wish list for the center? So I think that's directed at me. Mm-hmm. And that's a good question. So for me, I can tell you one of the projects that I want to get rolling right out of the gate is a project that looks at domestic terrorism in the United States, and it looks at the narratives that are being created by movements and organizations that compel people to engage in violent extremism. And so this is something that I've personally done with groups around the world. And now I'm taking that focus and bringing it back home to the United States on some of the domestic actors who we've seen engage in violence over the last year. And it's very important to understand where these groups come from, what motivates them, what is in their narrative that motivates people to follow them and act on that. And so I think there's a lot that can be done with that. And I think that's something that students can get involved in and really learn a lot, but also contribute a lot. So very excited about that kind of thing. So we've got another question. This one's for you, Wayne.
Okay.
From Joe Roth, who's an incoming graduate student in the Security Studies program. You mentioned a similar center at Harvard. How does UA Center differ from that at Harvard and similar centers and programs across the country?
The one here at Harvard is for those that are already in the intelligence community. So they are GS-15s, right, or senior executives. And so they're already practitioners in the field. And so they come here, after they've been in the government, the average is anywhere from 16 to 25 years of service. And so it's kind of like a capstone for them. And they do a research project here at Harvard. They have to take a series of classes throughout their year here. And then at the end, they do a research, some attempt to get it published. And then they return back to their agency with a new set of lenses in there, as they re-engage the intel community. But they meet officers here from around the world. We've got Australians, Israelis, British, French, United Arab Emirates, UAE, and multiple other countries, Canada, And so they study along with those individuals here in this program. So it's more on the back end of someone's career, midstream or back end of their career, as opposed to front loading. And they take back what they learn here, they take back their relationships, and then they become fellows of Harvard. And then after they complete that program, after they go back after 2 years, they can compete to come back as a senior fellow, and they only pick one Israeli and one American will come back, and then lead the other fellows in a team. So that would be the difference. There are some other programs that I've seen around the country, but I haven't seen them as in depth as this one. I've seen a series of classes that are spotted, but they didn't have the outreach and the mentorship to link it to that crossover between graduating and getting into employment. And that's key, right? When you learn all those great things, and now you're ready to apply it, and you're able to have the education and know all of where you want to apply that skill set. Hopefully the mentors, and hopefully if you get an internship, which we want to make sure those are available, that you're able to bridge that gap and walk into employment. So that's what I see different about this program, which I think puts it ahead of the others.
Thank you, Wayne. Really appreciate those supportive comments. So we've got another question from a graduate student in the Security Studies program. This is from Jeremy Knoll, who will soon be joining the ranks of the FBI.
Oh,
happy to say. So as someone that will be graduating soon, will graduates be able to assist and work on projects with the center? So actually, that's probably more of a question for me. And so the short answer to that question is we will be happy to have people who've just left the program, who've got jobs, to help out and to be involved, to mentor, to tell students about their experiences, through the process of applying for jobs all the way till getting your feet in the door and what it's like to be a newbie in an agency. So I can tell you that we've got people that have joined the board of advisors who've only been out of the program for a very short time, but are already making a difference in intelligence and security. So Jeremy will be happy to have you involved, definitely.
I would also say to Jeremy, I'm sorry, Carl, if you're done.
No, go ahead, Wayne.
If he's at the FBI Academy, many of us are down there. And so if we're there at the same time as they, just let us know his class number. And if we're in the area, we go down there for weapons fire and a few other training. It'd be good to stop by and say hello to him.
Okay, good to know. So, boy, the graduate students are really dominating the questions here. So got another security studies graduate student, Adam Eisen. This is a question, I think, for me. Will there be additional classes, certificates, concentrations as the program grows? For example, national security law program or certificates focusing on a specific country or region? So to answer that question, Adam, that is one thing that we definitely want to do, and that is to create certificates. That's one of the things that the faculty fellows will be talking about very soon, what certificates we want to get out the gate first. I know one of the certificates that I have in mind is a certificate on counterterrorism, because I think we've got some assets here at the university to help students train for that kind of thing, and there's definitely demand for it. I think another certificate that I've been thinking about is a certificate in open source intelligence, so that we've got people that can use that training to be useful in the IC, but also a range of other areas where that could be useful. So yeah, the short answer is yeah, we're going to be working on that kind of thing. To your specific question about law, one of the things I have thought about, but this is more of a long-term goal, is to maybe combine a security studies program with law, but that's something that's down the line. Okay, so question from an undergraduate student in our national security program, and this is for you, Wayne.
All right.
How important would you consider internships and other extracurricular opportunities towards securing a position within the intelligence community? Are there any in particular you would recommend?
I think it's extracurricular activity. Not everybody likes to join a lot of clubs. Sometimes study and work don't allow that. And so if you have it, that's great. If you don't, we don't really count that against you. Uh, as I've seen in the hiring process, it's nice to have, but then again, not a negative. But then internships are a little bit different. I think internships are a big plus. I was talking to a few of the recruiters last week, and just from the 4 recruiters that I had talked to from the 4 different agencies, they said that the lowest number of people who would transfer in from internship, graduation, and coming to the agency was 86%. So a large number of students who get an internship generally transfer that internship into employment because, of course, it takes all those gates to get through with the security clearance and issue your credit cards and all those kind of things to get you being treated just like a regular employee. You have exposure to the agency and you have an understanding, and then when it comes time to apply, well, you've kind of already have one leg in. So internships are a very big step towards getting an employment, be it with the agency you did the internship or with another IC element, because it is a community, right? So you don't always have to cross over into that same agency. But I do see internships as a big plus. But I would not get hung up on extracurricular activity. If you have it, great. If you don't, I wouldn't put a lot behind that. But get as much exposure to the agency. And then I would also say having mentors in those agencies inviting you into the agency so you can meet people, because we do allow people to come in. And when they come in, you get to meet other people and you get to talk, and they may tell you, oh, I'm going to be posting these type of jobs, in the summer, and when they come out, and you may have an interest, and that helps you get closer to those opportunities.
Okay, we have one final question. This is from Cindy Mortius again, the Graduate Student Security Studies Program. It's a great question. Can you tell us what is the most rewarding experience you've had in your career?
Well, I've been fortunate to have 2. One is the Army, and then the second one is as an intel officer. And, intel got to do a lot of things I thought I would never in life do, or see a lot of things that I either did want to see or didn't want to see. But it was an amazing run. But I think for me, there's probably 2 jobs that I've had in my career, and they weren't operational, surprisingly enough. They were support jobs, and one would be being the Intelligence Community Inspector General. Working through 2 administrations, both the Obama administration and the Trump administration. I worked for both, and it's a tough job. The IGs before me. It's not a very long-lived job. It's kind of like a high wire act without a net. But it's fraud, waste, and abuse. It's dealing with people who have challenges, or bad managers, or someone being abused, or someone stealing, and you have the opportunity with your staff to find those individuals, right, and deal with them. And the thing about IG work I found was the ability to deal with a problematic or bad manager who may be causing hardship to an individual, and for you to capture, deal with, and cease that behavior, hold that person accountable, and make the life better for those who had to suffer under that bad behavior. And you go home at night feeling better, knowing you made life better for others. It's one thing to save people's taxpayers' money, but when you can actually directly make someone's life better, I found that to be quite rewarding across my career.
All right, thank you. So I think that wraps up our questions for this evening. And before we call it a night, I want to definitely say thank you to people who made not only the launch event possible, but the center itself. And I want to thank our speakers tonight, once again, Provost Winsek, Michael Morrell, and definitely Wayne Stone. It's been such an honor to have you here to speak to us, speak to our students in particular, inspire them, okay, despite the fear of cannibalism that you may have caused them to have. But I also want to thank our board of advisors, and I want to thank our faculty fellows. There's great years ahead of us to make this center into everything it can be for our students and for those who are involved. But I also want to thank Dean Joe Ergo of the College of Arts and Sciences, who's been very, very supportive, as well as Associate Dean Bill Lyons. They were crucial in the process of getting this center off the ground. But I also want to thank the chair of my home department, the Department of Political Science, Nancy Marion, who's been supportive in creating this center. And I want to thank the audience for being involved tonight in this and for taking the time out to help us to celebrate this launch event. So I want to say thank you once again to everyone, and good night and take care.
Good night, and thank you all.
Bye-bye.